then he'd have a hat on. He'd be on the ground, and then he'd be up high, and he'd be pulling his face in all different directions and just cracking everybody up. And if you have the pleasure of seeing that, I'm sure you remember it to this day. My dad did enjoy entertaining. It was super fun growing up with somebody who liked to change his voice. He did have a silky smooth baritone, but he liked to hear the high voices, and he liked to make